Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. For those of you who haven't seen Do the Right Thing, or if you haven't seen it in a while, I will just read out a brief synopsis. On the hottest day of the year, on a street in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, everyone's hate and bigotry smolders and builds until it explodes into violence. This was directed and written by Spike Lee. It starred Danny Aiello, Spike Lee, Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Richard Edson, Giancarlo Esposito, Bill Nunn, John Turturro. It's got an impressive cast, really impressive cast. So this was a review I did live 3 years ago with Dave Voigt from In the Seats. And at that time, once you broadcasted a video live on YouTube, you could not go back and edit it. And obviously since then, as for those of you who have followed my channel over the last couple of years or so will know, I always like to edit later and include stills from the film I'm talking about to give you, the audience, a visual reference to the specific moments and scenes I'm talking about. And I just think it looks better on video in general as opposed to two talking heads. So I from time to time I go back to the live videos and I will re-edit them. Often I did two movies in one live review. So when we did Do the Right Thing, we also did Summer of Sam. So I just took out the Do the Right Thing portion of that video and I have recut it for you here. So without further ado, our review of Do the Right Thing. And my guest today is David, or is it Dave or David? What do you prefer, Dave?
6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's all good by me.
Dave Voigt, who has a really great podcast called In the Seats with, and he's also a writer and film critic. Dave, thanks so much again for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, anytime. So I wanted to jump right into Do the Right Thing. We both kind of mutually picked going with Spike Lee and reviewing two of his films. So what do you think Spike Lee was really saying with this film? I mean, what do you think the essence of the story is?
Oh, well, I mean, there's where do we start?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think when it really boils it down to it, I think one of the main things that was coming through, especially having watched it now again, for I think it was like about the fourth or fifth time, just in preparation for this, that I had seen the film, I really noticed sort of the concept of the microaggression and sort of the microaggressions when it comes through with sort of racist behavior. And I think for me, I think that's what he was trying to put forward, that in many ways, like, we're all guilty of it. And it's one of those things that is really sort of pervasive throughout cultures, be it black versus white or white versus black or black versus Korean or black versus Italian, no matter what. It's like they're there. And it's something that we need to be more culturally aware of, because it also speaks to something else that is inherent in human nature, that it's far too easy for us to sort of want to escalate the confrontation as opposed to de-escalate the confrontation. I mean, I think that puts through really well how we sort of, the effort to de-escalate isn't nearly as attractive as sort of the energy to escalate and sort of turn that into something horrible.
Yeah, no, well said. And, we see so many themes in this film too. And of course, as you said, racism and, all in this neighborhood, or they're all segregated in little pockets based on their background. You've got the Italians, you've got the Puerto Ricans, you've got the black neighborhood. I mean, it's mostly a black neighborhood, but then of course you got the one Italian pizzeria, of course, played brilliantly by Danny Aiello, and John Turturro is just, it's just something else. But I love this analogy of love and hate, of course, brilliant, but from Radio Raheem, is that, which is from Night of the Hunter. I'm sure hate on one hand and love on the other. And that when you keep swinging with hate, that's all you're going to get. You're just going to get hate and hate and hate on hate. And you know what I never pointed out is right at the end when Spike Lee throws the garbage can through the window. He says hate right before he throws it. So all these people. For me, I've seen it many times, and just watching it again the other night, it just stood out to me how awful people are treating each other. Even like the ageism, like the way poor like Ossie Davis is treated by some of the younger guys in the neighborhood. They just write him totally off and criticize him where they really don't know anything about his past or his troubles. But yeah, I mean, it's such an ugly film in a lot of ways, but at the same time, this humor, this blend of humor that Spike Lee finds, like, even though some of those scenes on paper probably don't seem so funny, but it's just the ways in which the characters interact and that the ways in which the actors were just delivering it, like Giancarlo Esposito, for as Buggin, like, was just, he's hilarious, but he has a point about having photos of black people in the pizzeria because they're the only ones who eat there. Did you find the humor stood out and had a real good mix of the two between the drama and humor of it all?
No, absolutely, because I mean, it's one of those things where it needs to be a little funny. It needs to be a little uncomfortable in order to sort of make the point that it wants to make. There needs to be sort of hilarity, but still conflict between the guy sitting on the corner in the Korean grocer, or the Italian pizzeria, or like that conflict. That the humor and the conflict need to go side by side. If it's Ossie Davis and Ruby D sort of interacting, and then just the kids on the streets, and just Spike sort of mingling and running sort of between it all as sort of our narrator and our real sort of linchpin as he sort of weaves in and out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, well said. What are some of the characters that stood out to you the most?
Well, I mean, I would say I really loved Ruby D, just as mother sister, because I mean, she's the best. And I mean, just the nature of her character being sort of this neighborhood queen on high, who even by the end of the movie gets roped into the sort of hatred of it all, and then just sort of can acknowledge it after the fact. And it's really one of those things, like, it really, to me, felt important to sort of have that sort of mother of the neighborhood also lose it sort of at that moment as well. But I mean, Radio Raheem is great. I mean, Sam Jackson was great. The
DJ.
Yeah. I mean, even from the opening of the film with the credits and, Rosie Perez doing the dance number, I mean, there is this sort of vibrancy that for even some of the characters who, may not be on screen all that long, they're all important, and they all have a real sort of significance to why they're there. And I mean, I think that's one of the big things that you really have to pull away from a movie like this, because as much as you're trying to find who the lead is or who the star is, like, they're all important, and they're like, this is really an ensemble piece, which is what makes the film even that much more impressive.
That's a good point, because I mean, everyone is so distinctive. There isn't anyone with a one-liner just to keep some kind of bits of business or action going. Like, they all come in with everyone gets a real focus when they're on the screen. And also, like, even like Frank Vincent with the car, when they, with the fire hydrant, and they put the water in his car, like, he really takes focus in that scene. I mean, he's the only scene he's in, but it's like there can be a movie with all of those characters, because everyone is so distinctive, and there's so much to think about, because he doesn't necessarily give you the psychology behind why some of these people are doing what they're doing. You really have to kind of fill in the blanks. I mean, for example, Buki, who Spike Lee plays, you see him, he's not the best pizza delivery guy. He's not the best father, and he seems only interested in making money and even, getting money. But at the same time, he's very good at cutting right through the bullshit, in terms of telling, Pino why Pino's a racist, that perhaps he actually wants to be black because everyone he admires was black, all the black celebrities and singers and basketball players. Even when he tells Danny Aiello, don't flirt with my sister. Everything he tells the other brother Vito, don't stand up to Pino, don't take Pino's crap. He has this way of just being so direct, even though he seems like someone who doesn't care about much, but clearly he does, but he doesn't really, because there's so many characters, and this in a good way, he doesn't really go into really exploring their psychology. He just brings you into the truth. It's all one takes place in one day, as you know. But with every viewing, I don't know if you experience this, with every viewing, I see so much more because of all the characters, of all the things that happen in this one day. Is that your experience with each viewing?
Oh, definitely. This is definitely one of those films where that happens. And I mean, I think especially on this film, especially on this viewing in particular, I think there's two things that really stood out for me. One, I think it was the cinematography from Dickerson. Just the film is one day and it's one block, but it felt big. It felt cinematic. It never felt like a small sort of specific story. It felt like a very big, very ranging, very sort of humanistic story. Like, it's not meant to be about, just the story about these people on this block. It's meant to be a story about everybody everywhere. And I think it comes through really well visually. Yeah. And I think the other aspect of it is the costume design. Just because everyone was distinct, everyone had their own look, everyone stood out. Yeah. And that was so important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I was watching. Did you ever see the 1 hour? I literally just saw it yesterday. There's a 1 hour making of documentary, and which is so good. Like, I really got lost in it. I thought it was a remarkable making of documentary. But someone had said that it happens to take place in New York, but this could be anywhere in America, because really, in a way, it's a story of America. You have all that segregation. And you have so many things that happen with culture clashing, and really that being rooted in fear of someone who's different, hating them because they're different. And then, of course, even seeing a police officer at the end kill Radio Raheem. I mean, even Spike Lee, I don't know if you saw the interview he did at TIFF a couple of years ago, 30th anniversary. He's like, nothing's changed. And it's true. I mean, people still... we still see these murders happening, and we still see people being very afraid of something that they don't know. And you see that with everyone, in this movie. You see, and I think, like Giancarlo Esposito, when I used to watch this when I was younger, I think I saw this when I was about 19. I didn't understand. I just saw that he was, to me, I just thought, wow, this guy's he's funny and he's got nothing better to do than to, try to boycott Sal's. But then really there's so much to that, because he has a good point. There's a black area and you have only Italian-American pictures up on the wall. So let's get some representation in here, because every day he's got to be reminded again and again that he's not seen even in his own environment, but then, Sal's got a point too. It's my place. I'll do what I want, but there's so much history to that. There's so much accuracy to wanting that. I mean, he's almost like a political figure. I think Giancarlo Esposito said that, nothing is just bits of business or some just to be funny. I mean, you can understand his rage. Same with Radio Raheem, with the radio. I mean, all these points of views have their, but then it's like you said, like it escalates, and the hate, and it explodes.
And then it really does come through, because I mean, especially at the end of the film with the dueling quotes, one from Martin Luther King, the other one from Malcolm X, just in terms of violence and sort of the escalation therein, and how nobody wins. And I mean, that's basically the point of the film.
Exactly.
With violence, nobody wins.
Exactly.
There is no winner loser when violence happens.
Yeah.
which is the message that gets so lost even to this day, which is the sad part of so many of these stories.
Yeah, because even Spike Lee was saying, people ask me all the time, why did he? Well, he said mainly people who are white would ask him, why does Mookie throw the garbage can through the window? And he goes, no one black asked me that. Everybody knew, but for some reason, people just. I think even the criticism at the time, a lot of people didn't get it, or they thought he was trying to provoke people. Or did you read much about how people at the time were just sort of
I
confused?
did. I mean, a lot of the old guard critics were interpreting it as sort of race baiting and trying to sort of stir the pot. But really, in many ways, I mean, as much as it is, it's stirring the pot in a different way because it's not trying to rile up. It's trying to go, why are we? It's asking the question, why are we getting riled up?
Exactly. Yeah, over nothing. I mean, it's all over tedious things that become larger, and then those larger things explode. But
when you boil it down, Radio Raheem got killed because they wanted to put a picture on the wall.
Yeah,
all that
exactly.
Out of a picture.
Yeah, or play the jukebox in the
right.
In the bar, But I also really like when he goes into the different points of views of Mookie, Pino, the Korean grocery store owner, and they all say terrible things about everyone else based on race. I mean, I thought that was just a way to make it so much more clearer as to, these people are reacting off of an image or off of a stereotype or off of some perceived notion. And they're not really looking at who these people are. They're just seeing something and reacting like in an animalistic fashion. But do you think anyone in the story wasn't that way?
I forget the character's name, but I mean, it was at the end of the film, and I mean, they had burned Sal to the ground, and then they went to go after the Korean grocer, and he's out there with his broom going, "I'm black. No, I'm black too." And obviously the first reaction is like, "No, you're not black." But when it sunk in, when that moment sat with some of the other characters, it's like, "No, he's right," and then they let him go. And that's when the violence sort of, it was that moment where the rage could have continued, but it didn't.
That's a good point. Yeah, because he does say we're the same,
Yeah.
And yeah, they walk away. I was also thinking of Vito, the younger brother, because he's actually not racist at all. He likes everybody. He doesn't see anything in terms of color. He sees the people, and it's funny that I think that was not funny, but I think that was why him and Pino, his brother, had so much friction. Because Pino, played by John Turturro, was the total opposite. He's a totally angry, hates his job, hates his place in life, hates the environment he lives in, is a total bigot. And I think that's obviously why they were clashing so much in terms of, well, you should see things from my side, as Pino, very aggressively tried to do with his brother. But there's also, even Sal is sort of, he's a pretty complex guy because he's also very nice to everyone, but he quickly he has a temper very quickly. He's nice to the kids, and then as soon as Giancarlo Esposito has a problem, he just tells him right off. Same with Radio Raheem. Same with a lot of the characters. I mean, but then he'll say something so kind, the next minute.
I definitely think he's the sort of the more tragic character out of all this because his character obviously has such affection for the neighborhood and the people in it, but it's his space, it's his way. He doesn't want things to change in his little world that he built with his own two hands, tile by tile.
Yeah.
And that's the tragic part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well said. What is it about this film that you really like? Is there something in it that you have seen in your life, or what is it about this movie?
I think it was one of the first films that I can remember seeing that gave me something very cinematic, but on a very small stage.
Right.
Like, it was still very big, and it was still dealing with very sort of human and real issues that are out there in society, but it was entertaining. It was visually engaging. It gave us something it gave us a world we could get invested in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like I said, it's such a fine balance of his use of entertainment, his use of being serious, right down to the music. I mean, he's got the Public Enemy theme song
Of course,
off
yeah.
the top. I mean, you want to get up and dance, right? Like it's just such
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it's going. It feels like it's going to be light off the top. And almost that segment almost feels like a music video. Like I know he said that was he took that was inspired by the Bye Bye Birdie intro with Elvis, which I'm sure you read. But it's I wonder where. I mean, I think he was inspired by Billy Wilder. You could see Scorsese,
Oh, for sure.
Elia Kazan. I don't think he really gets enough credit for that. You don't hear people talking really in terms of his crafting being so phenomenal. At least I haven't. Oh, someone's calling me. Sorry, because I'm doing this on my phone. You met him, right? I saw your photo with him.
Yes, I got to interview him one time. It was
it was an interview.
Yeah, I got to interview him one time for Chirac. He was in town doing doing press for that. It was interesting. It was an interesting roundtable because I was there with a few other people, and there were people of multiple colors. There were 2 white journalists and there were 4 black journalists, and they were talking about sort of the cultural issues and sort of the societal issues around the film that he brings up. And the 2 white guys were actually talking about the film. And I remember there was some point in the round table where he went, it's like, okay, who's actually seen the film? And it was the 2 white journalists who put their hands up.
Really?
Yeah. And that was, to me, that was the surprising thing, because while on one end, Spike really is this important and sort of cultural, sort of significant artist in the Black community for telling these stories, I find it interesting that he almost gets lost a little bit in terms of, I'm trying to find the right word here, I guess maybe culturally, because the films are so universal in so many ways, be it something like this or be it something like Malcolm. Like, there's so much that can be pulled from so many of his films.
Yeah. No, it's true. They're extremely relevant.
He is a relevant filmmaker, which I think is the important part. Yeah.
No, absolutely. That always stands out to me more and more. What made him realize that some people hadn't seen it? Was it what they were asking?
Yeah, it was just talking around it a little bit, and at some point he just said, "Hey, who's seen the movie?" And it was like there we go.
Okay. How did he react to that?
Well, he laughed. Just laughing with the 2 white guys at the table with the ones who saw the movie. So.
Was there anything he said to you that stood out, or was it purely answering questions about the movie?
You know what? I think for me, it's just his understanding of craft, because I mean, there's something that really gets lost along the way. The man is a student of film. I mean, the man is a professor of film in New York. And there are so many filmmakers and storytellers out there who have no sense of what came before them, and I mean, I think that's kind of tragic. It's so important. The way to learn how to make movies is to watch movies.
Absolutely,
plain and simple.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you said that, and that was largely why I started this video podcast, because I couldn't. I always find many people don't know much before 1970, or even nowadays before maybe even 1980. So I you want to build on the language, and you totally see that with him. I mean, there's so many in Do the Right Thing. You can see so many influences, but not in the sense that he's ripping anyone off, in the sense that it's now become his stamp. As we said, I mean, I could certainly see a Scorsese influence. I could certainly see a Billy Wilder influence, and and so on and so forth. But he even has some really unique angles. And sometimes I thought, is that a POV? Like when they're through the window, like sometimes the camera was just tilted or it was low. I mean, obviously it was the intent was to bring out something emotionally about those people. There are a couple of times where I couldn't quite figure out why he kind of had those awkward shots. Did that pop out to you at all?
Yes, because to me, some of that was Dassin, like Naked City. And
Yes.
still sort of pulling from that New York reference, but giving it sort of that different flair.
Right. Yeah, no, that is a really, really good point, because it does have a somewhat docu-style feeling, just a touch. I mean, it's quite cinematic. But yeah, some of those kind of awkward shots that just kind of make you feel uneasy. That's how I felt. I mean, maybe perhaps that was the point.
Well, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. But just going over, I know we talked about some of the actors, but just a phenomenal cast: Danny Aiello, Ossie Davis, Ruby D, Richard Edson, Giancarlo Esposito, Spike Lee, of course, Bill Nunn, who's Radio Raheem, Rosie Perez, John Turturro. I mean, wow. I mean, it's just he always said he always made such a it was so important to find the best people for the job. And in a lot of I haven't seen every single one of his films. I've seen most of them. I always can't imagine anyone else. Samuel L. Jackson's another one as the radio host. I mean, his how do you feel about his casting often? Do you think he gets it usually quite right, quite nails it?
Absolutely. And I mean, he obviously has his repertory of players, because something like Do the Right Thing, it's like, oh, there's John Savage for a scene, and then
that's right.
Oh, there's a really young Martin Lawrence. It's like he knows who he likes to work with.
Yeah,
because I mean, obviously, from Do the Right Thing and his other movies, we can even see, even when we talk about Summer of Sam, there's crossover with some players there, which I think is
yes, there is.
Part of his style for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just wanted to touch on that 1 hour documentary, which I really loved, and I love how some people in the area didn't like that it was happening because they couldn't go outside, or they were being stopped, or they had to be quiet. And then other people were like, "Man, this is a black filmmaker about a black area. This is incredible. You rarely see this." Other people were getting work on it. And then they also, they followed that one woman who had a crack addiction, and that other woman was helping her and giving her a job and stuff like that. But I just thought that was so, I don't know what it was about it. It was just, it felt so special. You could feel everyone was so creatively involved. On top of it, yes, there was conflicts and so on and so forth. But just even at the end, I almost felt sad, like when they're tearing everything down after the 8 weeks. It just felt like it meant. It just felt like it meant so much that they were filming a movie about those people on that block who were, obviously ignored in film up until that point, especially. How do you like that little 1 hour documentary?
I thought it was fantastic, and I mean, I think it really is sort of an important thing to remember of how much he has engendered a film community sort of in Black neighborhoods and Puerto Rican neighborhoods, and really sort of engendered sort of the creative spirit that has come out of New York. Because I mean, and really when you think about it, even if you go back to like the 70s and think about Southern African American filmmakers, I mean, there was, Melvin Van Peebles, there was Gordon Parks, there wasn't a lot of people, but Spike was probably one of the first mainstream guys to hit on a global level, which really sort of created this level of inspiration for such a wide variety of artists of no matter what color. And I mean, I think this film really was a real groundswell, not just in terms of the statement that it made, but sort of the creative statement that it made and what was capable.
Yeah, very well said. No, I like that you said that, because it is, you're right, it is so universal, and it's not there's there's really, something for everyone. I liked even what Giancarlo Esposito said, because he said growing up in that documentary, because he's half black, half Italian, and the black people didn't want to hang out with him because his name was Giancarlo. He was Italian, and the Italians didn't want to hang out with him because he was black. So he was hanging out with the Jewish people because they were the next outsider.
Right.
And that's really what the film is about. If you think about it, I'm not going to hang out with you because of you look like this, or that's your name, or And I just thought, man, that is, and that still very much exists today, and it really not even just America. I mean, here, even in Toronto, it was just very diverse city. We have those same sort of segregated pockets, Little Italy, Little Koreatown, and so on and so forth. So here we are 30 years later, right? And it still holds up.
And you know what? I mean, it's a little weird even just with us talking about this film today and even watching the film and watching Radio Raheem get killed and then seeing today, it's been a year anniversary since George Floyd died. And I'm like, oh God, it really hammers home just how important a piece of art this film really is for so many different audiences, be they black audiences, be they white audiences. It's something that needs to be reminded of. It's one of those things that you need to put on every 5 years just to go, oh, right.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, well said. Well said. Was there any other thoughts on this film you wanted to mention?
I mean, I think just going back to something like Ernest Dickerson with the cinematography, I mean, who became such a fantastic filmmaker in his own right. And just, I think just seeing sort of the breadth of talent that sort of came out of the 40 Acres and a Mule Filmworks sort of community that we're seeing more and more of today, this is kind of where it started.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, this is kind of where it started. And I mean, it's an important piece of history and it's an important film.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is exclusive content that I create month in and month out. And as a subscriber, you are able to vote on polls and contribute to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to my YouTube channel by pressing the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on the thanks link and you can leave a donation there if you choose to. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner. To your top left in just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Also click the like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Also, you can also share the episode. All of these things are what produce traction to my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you watching and thank you again. And I will see you in the next episode.